أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. سيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين ورحمة للعالمين، وصلى الله على آله الطاهرين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أوصيكم بعد الله ونفسي بتقوى الله. We are, alhamdulillah, at the threshold of the holy month of Ramadan. Based on the astronomical predictions, West Africa and North America would be the first to sight the crescent with naked eyes tonight, inshallah. You just wait for the confirmation, but that is how the predictions are. Well, I would like to take this opportunity to just present one early part of the khutbah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Where the Prophet was, welcoming the month of Ramadan. And the main point that I would like to emphasize from that khutbah, he begins by saying, أيها الناس إنه قد أقبل إليكم شهر الله بالبركة والرحمة والمغفرة. That, O people, indeed the month of Allah has approached you, and it comes with barakat, with blessings, with mercy and forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. شهر هو عند الله أفضل الشهور وأيامه أفضل الأيام ولياليه أفضل الليالي وساعاته أفضل الساعات. Where he says that this is the month which is the best of the month in the eyes of Allah. The days are the best, and the nights of Ramadan also are the best of the nights. And even the hours, each hour of that month has its own significance. وَهُوَ شَهْرٌ. And the most important part is saying that this is a month دُعِيتُمْ فِيهِ إِلَى ضِيَافَةِ اللَّهِ. You have been invited, to be the guest of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What else do we want? Other than to be in the ziyafat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is where normally when we talk about becoming the guest of the people, we expect something, maybe a comfortable sitting, good food and drink. And so now that we are going to be in the ziyafat and be the guest of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is a sufra there, but there is no food there. In the month of Ramadan, you don't eat or drink. But that sufra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has certain things in it. Number one, he says that you will be considered to be among those who are Ahlul Karama, honorable in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what will be there on the sufra? The items that we will get as guests. Number one, he says, وَتَصْبِيحُ فِيهِ وَأَنفَاسُكُمْ فِيهِ تَصْبِيحٌ. This simple act of breathing, which we don't even do consciously. We don't even think about it. We don't do niyat. It just comes automatically. Allah says this act of, breathing in and out, I will consider that to be an act of tasbih, where you are praising me. The second item that we have is there, that when you go into the state of sleep, when you are fasting, that state of sleep would be considered to be an ibadah. Normally, your wudu, if you go to sleep, it becomes batil. So sleeping is actually a barrier in a way. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says when you fast and go for resting, even that act of sleeping in that state, He says, I consider that to be an ibadah. The third item that we have there is that, your amal will be accepted. And the fourth item that we have on that menu for us is that your du'as will be, answered positively by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salawat alayhi. But then coming to the main point that I have from this early part of the khutbah of the Prophet, فَأَسْأَلُ اللَّهَ رَبُّكُمْ بِنِيَّاتٍ صَادِقَةٍ وَقُلُوبٍ طَاهِرَةٍ. He says one of the things is that you should pray. You should pray that He may give you the opportunity to fast during this month, to recite the holy book. But you do that. You ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with sincere intention and with pure heart. فَإِنَّ الشَّقِيَّ مَنْ حُرِّمَ غُفْرَانَ اللَّهِ فِي هَذِهِ الشَّهْرِ, because the most unfortunate person is the one who is deprived from the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during this great month. So maghfirah is the main thing that we should be seeking. But let me focus on these words, وَنِيَّاتٍ صَادِقَةٍ, true and pure intention. This is a general concept that we have in the Islamic teachings, and especially it becomes important for us in fasting, where the acceptance of good deeds is based on our intention. Now, fasting itself is very unique. Unlike all other good deeds that we do, we have to do something. Wudu, you have to do. Salat, you have to pray. Charity, you have to give. You do something, actively, in appearance. But when it comes to fasting, it's very unique. Fasting is a good deed, is an ibadat where you don't do anything. I don't think there is anything we can do to show that I'm fasting unless I make a gloomy face of myself. Otherwise, there is no way of expressing that I'm fasting today. And that's where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in one of the ahadith Qudsiyya, these are the ahadith which have come from the Prophet, where the statement is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it's not part of the Quran. And that's why it's known as Hadith Qudsi. And there Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, in the words of the Prophet, إِنَّ اللَّهَ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى يَقُولُ الصَّوْمُ لِي, fasting is for me. Because there is no chance of showing off. You do namaz, you can show off. You're doing charity or any other good things, there is a chances of riyah, showing off that I'm doing this. But fasting, you can't do that. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, as-sawm li, fasting is done for me. Wa ana ajzi alayhi, and I myself am going to reward for it. Normally, here's a malaika who do everything. Now, it's just a point of emphasis that, Allah physically doesn't come. No. But Allah says that because the fasting is for me, because of the purity there, He says, I am the one, I'll reward you for that. And this brings me to this general concept of niyyah, that the intention of whatever we do, not only fasting, it has to be pure for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a whole discussion about, what is the value of good deed from the Islamic point of view. Any action, actually, a good deed, is in a way value neutral. The value depends on the intention. We are forced to evaluate people based on what we see. We see a good deed, we say he's a good person. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't deal with things in that way. And this is a concept which has been made very clear to us from the early history of humanity. You look at this story in Surah Ma'idah, ayat number 27, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Prophet that, read to them the story of the sons of Adam. When إِذْ قَرَّبَ قُرْبَانًا, both of them, Habil and Qabil, made a qurbani, sacrifice in the name of God. فَتُقُبَّلَ مِنْ أَحَدِهِمَا وَلَمْ يُتَقَبَّلْ مِنَ الْآخَرِ. It was accepted from Habil, but not from Qabil. And this is where Qabil becomes angry, says to his brother now, well, if you wanted to fight with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing to do with your brother. He's out of this jealousy. He says, I'm going to kill you. Your qurbani was accepted, mine no. And this is where Habil utters the words, and this has been preserved in the Quran as a message for us. إِنَّمَا يَتَقَبَّلُ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. Habil says, it's not my fault that your qurbani was not accepted. Your sacrifice. Innama, verily, God only accepts from those who are muttaqeen. Taqwa, purity of the intention comes in. And so this is where we have to realize that, this niyyat is very important, and that's where it gives value to our good deeds. In Surah Isra, Surah number 17, ayat 18 and 19 also is relevant very quickly. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ كَانَ يُرِيدُ الْعَاجِلَ عَجَّلْنَا لَهُ فِيهَا مَا نَشَاءُ لِمَنْ نُرِيدُ. It says if somebody does something good, but not for me, he's doing it for his worldly fame, or maybe, self-satisfaction, wants to feel good about it, or he wants to have some, power and prestige in the society because of that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if somebody is doing this for this world, he still controls everything. He doesn't say, I guarantee that I'll give a reward in this dunya. He says, no, we will, bring the reward for him in this dunya. Of course, liman nurid, depends on who I choose among them also. And so they might get the reward in this dunya. ثُمَّ جَعَلْنَا لَهُ جَهَنَّمَ يَصْلَاهَا مَضْمُونًا مَدْحُورًا. But after that in Akhirah, he should not expect anything from me. He shall be basically sent into the Jahannam. He will be burned, condemned, and banished. And then the ayat goes on, وَمَنْ أَرَادَ الْآخِرَةَ وَسَعَى لَهَا سَعْيَهَا. But whoever desires the hereafter, if the intention is him to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and strives for it as he should be striving, وَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ. Habil's statement says, مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. Here, وَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ. And the condition is that he is a believer. فَأُولَٰئِكَ كَانَ سَعْيُهُمْ مَشْكُورًا. These are the people whose striving shall deserve thanks. And so this is where we have to realize that, niyyat is very important. And so, inshallah, when we go through the process of doing the good deeds, especially the fasting of the month of Ramadan, keep in mind that niyyat is very important. You don't have to verbalize it. You don't even have to, make sure you are there before Fajr to do the niyyat in words. No. If you have that intention, I'm going to fast for the every day of this month of Ramadan, right in the beginning, that also would be sufficient, inshallah. In Ahsan al-Hadith, Kitab Allah al-Aziz, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحليم الكريم غافر الذنب بقابل التوبة وهو الغفور الرحيم ونشهد أن لا إله إلا هو العطوف للعباد بجوده والعواد على المذنبين بحلمه ونشهد أن محمدا نبيه وحبيبه بسم الله سيد المرسلين والشفيع المذنبين ورحمة للعالمين صلى الله عليه وعلى آله الداعين إلى سبيل الله بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة قادة الأمم وأولياء النعم ومعدن الرحمة أوصيكم عباد الله بالتوبة عما سلف من ذنوبكم. When we talk about the good deeds, as I said, we don't have a choice but to look at the appearance of things and we make the judgment about an individual or a community or even a nation. We see, for example, in the international scenes, whenever there is disasters of a natural kind or situation, aid is sent by many, rich countries of the world. And we, of course, don't have a choice but to look at it and, we say, they are good people. And they are doing this with sincerity or this out of this sense of humanity. But we should not be that naive. It's not always the same. There are in many cases, selfish motives involved even in the aid given by the rich countries to the disaster areas. Sometimes it is obvious, but most of the time it is hidden. And I would like to, point out in khutbah 2 examples. Look at the present U.S. administration. At least the good thing about them is that they are very open. Whatever is in their heart, they just, speak about it. One of the first steps taken by the Trump administration in the second round that he has come to power is reducing, the size of the government or the budget and the expenses. And to make it more efficient, one of the things he did right in the beginning was actually stopping the funding of U.S. aid, which it has plays an important role in helping many poor countries around the world. But this is where, you have to look at it. For example, his negotiation going on with the president of Ukraine at the moment. U.S. till now has been putting a lot of money there in that war effort against Russia. But now Trump is being very blunt. He says, we want 50% of the control of the rare minerals in Ukraine. And we want the deal to be signed. As if, further help depends on this. And this is where the motivation comes out, very clear. And one of the examples, unfortunately, I think many people in the Muslim world, even in the Shi'i world, do not know, is the situation of Iraq. In year 2003, the US-led invasion of Iraq took place. And apparently, what was the pretext? And what was the motivation? We would like to remove the dictator Saddam Hussein and promote, democracy there. But the Iraqis did not get this democracy for free. And the price that they are paying till now, I think even many Iraqis don't know about it. Many people, do not remember that on 22nd of May 2003, then the US President George Bush signed an executive order with the title of Protection of the Development for Iraq and Other Properties in which Iraq has an interest. And basically what that executive order said that all revenues from Iraq's oil sales has to be funneled directly into an account at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Boy, this is not your mal. That oil belongs to Iraq. Why should it go to the Federal Reserve Bank in New York? And this executive order is actually renewed every year. Even Biden, renewed it last year in May 2024. And basically, it places the control of Iraq's oil revenue under the discretion of the US president, leaving Baghdad with limited control over its resources and earnings. Yes, after this invasion took place, United Nations Security Council issued a resolution on the same day, 22nd of May 2003, basically in a way appointing US as the administrator of Iraq at the time, and that the Development Fund for Iraq, DFI, should be established to manage Iraqi oil revenue. But the UN Security Council resolution did not say that the revenue has to go to the US Federal Bank. Rather, they very clearly mentioned it should be held by the Central Bank of Iraq. But Bremer, who was the administrator there, unilaterally decided to put the money in the Federal Bank in New York. And this basically gives control of US over Iraq's oil revenue. Every year they have to basically send an application. Every month, the Ministry of Finance of Iraq has to send application to get the money released, and that depends on the discretion of who is there at the end. For example, during the last Trump administration in January 2020, when Iraqi parliament voted to expel US troops, the Trump administration at that time threatened to freeze Iraqis' access to oil revenues. So they're using it as a way of, controlling an entire, nation. They have no right at all. And what is the amount that they have at the moment? $120 billion sitting there. And this is where we see that, Iraq is still suffering in that way. Many times we get this question, Maulana, why do we do all this fundraising for the orphans of Iraq and other places? They have oil. Many people do not know that the revenue doesn't go to Iraq. It is controlled by the United States of America. And this is where we have to realize, sometimes we think, the superpowers do things on the level of humanity, and they are very, helpful people. They have their own motivation. Sometimes it is very obvious, sometimes it is not. It reminds me of a saying of the people from Zimbabwe, during the colonial time when the Europeans were controlling that part of the world. There is a very famous saying. They used to say to these Europeans that, when you came initially, you had the Bible in your hand to teach us the faith, and we owned the land. Now you own the land, and we have the Bible in our hand. So that is it's nothing new. This is the history which is going on from a long time. So we just have to be more, aware and vigilant about what is happening around the world. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasten the appearance of the Imam, ajalallahu ta'ala faraj sharif, so that we can really have true justice in the world. اللهم صل على سيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وعلى إمام المتقين وأمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب صلوات الله عليه وعلى سيدة نساء العالمين سيدتنا فاطمة بنت رسول الله صلوات الله عليها، وعلى سيد الشباب أهل الجنة الحسن المجتبى والحسين الشهيد بكربلاء عليهم الصلاة والسلام. اللهم صل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي عليهم الصلاة والسلام. اللهم صل على مولانا الحجة بن الحسن صاحب العصر والزمان ما حيا صار البدء والطغيان حاد بأمنية الشرك والنفاق حاسد فر البغي والشقاق، صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آبائه الكرام ما اتصلت الليالي والأيام. اللهم عجل فرج وسهل مخرجا واكحل ناظرنا بنظرة منا إليه واجعلنا من المستشهدين بين يديه. اللهم اجعلنا ممن يذكر فتنفعه الذكرى. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون.